Being in the right place with the right idea at the right time is critical to success. And I realized that in 1981. When I was 5, I decided to be an inventor. My first few inventions didn't get a lot of traction, but 1981 I realized that timing was critical. And the inventors whose names you recognize, like, for example, Larry Page, my new boss, actually my first boss, because this job I took at Google 3 years ago is actually my first job for a company I didn't start myself, but it's a very unusual company. But they were in the right place with the right idea at the right time. So I started out with the common wisdom that you cannot predict the future. But being an engineer, I thought if I gather enough data, if I visualized it in the right ways, if I squinted at the visualizations, maybe I could make some educated guesses. And I made a very surprising discovery. There's one aspect of the future that's amazingly predictable. And I had this data actually going back to the 19th century through 1980. I had it in 81, and I projected it out to 2050. We're now 35 years later, and these measurements are exactly where they should be. Now, not everything is predictable, but if you track the price, performance, and capacity, not of everything, and not of every technology, but of information technology, they form exquisitely predictable trajectories. For example, the price performance of computing, calculations per second per constant dollar, whether it's American dollar, Canadian dollar, it forms a very smooth curve, and that trajectory is exponential, not linear. And that bears a little explanation, because our intuition about the future is linear. In fact, if you wonder why do we have a brain, that's the reason. It's to predict the future. So we can anticipate the consequences of our actions, the consequences of inaction. So 50,000 years ago, when our brains were evolving, we'd look up and say, okay, that animal's going that way. I'm coming up the path this way. We're going to meet at that rock. That's not such a good idea. I'm going to take a different path. That turned out to be good for survival. That became hardwired in our brains. But we didn't expect that animal to speed up as it went along. We anticipated a linear trajectory of its course, and that worked pretty well. The trajectory of information technology is quite different. It's exponential. In fact, the primary difference between myself and my critics is we're looking at the same world. We have pretty consistent estimates of what that means. They apply their linear intuition, and we come out with very different conclusions. So what's the difference? A linear trajectory, that's our intuition about the future, that goes 1, 2, 3. An exponential trajectory, that's the reality of information technology, goes 1, 2, 4. Doesn't sound that different. But by the time you get to step 30, the linear projection, our intuition is at 30. The exponential trajectory, information technology, is at 1 billion. Step 40 is at 1 trillion. This is not an idle speculation about the future. I mean, this little computer I have on my belt here is 1 trillion times more powerful per dollar than the computer that was, or the calculating equipment that was used in the 1890 American Census, the first to be automated. It's several billion times more powerful than the computer I used when I went to college at MIT. I went to MIT because MIT was so advanced in the late 60s that it actually had a computer. And it took up a floor of a building. It was shared by thousands of us students and professors. This is actually 1 million times less expensive. It's several thousand times more powerful in computation and communication. It's a several billion-fold increase in price performance. And it's also 100,000 times smaller. That's another exponential trajectory. That computer took up an entire floor of a building. You needed an ID to get into the building. I'd take my bicycle across campus to get to the computer. Now we're deeply integrated with this computation. We'll do it again in the next 25 years. This will be about the size of a blood cell. It'll again be 1 billion times more powerful in price performance. Gives you some idea of the consequences of exponential progressions.